The Backrooms. Radiance everlasting, brilliant evermore. Entity number 215, the Bronze Builders. Please note that Entity 215 has only been recently discovered, and as such, the information within this document is subject to change. Meg Outcast, Senior Scribe Logan. Information on this discovery was made possible by Dr. Kwame Christoph. Contacts. Usually present at Outcast Station Lucille. Ask around on level 11, the Endless City. Those in the loop will know where it is. Dr. Christoph has chosen not to include other contact information. Additional information. Dr. Kwame Christoph is an ex-biological researcher from the Major Explorer Group. Much like many of us within the Outcasts, they separated themselves from the organization due to differing ideals and conflict of interests. Overall, Dr. Christoph is notable for publishing information and studies on entities such as shocker gulls and plague goblins. The following report is a log recounting the first encounters with Entity 215 on level 10, the bumper crop, 11/1/2023. Copy of report. Citizens of Malttown and other settlements within level 10 have filed multiple complaints and reports of an unknown metallic creature or set of entities scampering within enclosed spaces and buildings. Additionally noted is a substantial amount of missing food and supplies from stockpiles and storage. Sightings began as recently as the 18th of December 2022, 18/12/2022. After trekking further into level 10, off the beaten path, I began to catch glimpses of what I assume the residents of Malttown were referring to. I'm unsure if this is anything too out of the ordinary. It seems like a set of stone or concrete structures organized haphazardly within a clearing in the field. I'm approximately 100 or fewer meters away from the site, or less. So far, I can verify all the reports that there is an anomaly of some kind present. The closer I've gotten to this anomaly, the less organic things become. The ground around a 30-meter radius of this anomaly has been seemingly converted to a mix of concrete and red bricks. These don't seem to be any different than any normal bit of building material I'd find on another level or the front rooms. Sets of little square cutouts and clean-cut burrows of some massive, almost purposeless block of concrete are frequent, though I can't seem to understand why they exist. Getting closer, I've reached the epicenter of this larger structure. Everything seems to be a mix of abstract and linear concrete structures surrounding a more natural structure reminiscent of an old house or church. I can't quite tell which of the two it is attempting to be, but it seems to take inspiration from both its tall height and the material used. There's a notable presence of a proper wooden door on this structure as well. I've tried entering it, but the interior is an entirely blank concrete husk of a room, though it's hard to tell with the lack of any good light source. I'll leave a small amount of food and a camera to record if anything shows up to take the bait. Judging by the sudden appearance of this strange structure, I am certain I'll catch a glimpse of whatever entity was lurking around here. I'll write an update whenever I can. Update 1 of 2, Day 2. As I had predicted, I caught sight of something quite incredible. On the camera I set up within the main structure, I caught sight of a curious gathering of entities. I would describe them as approximately 20 centimeters in height, having minimal defining features, aside from simplistic geometric shapes for parts of their bodies, all entirely made of a substance similar in appearance to bronze or brass. Overall, these creatures are humanoid, having hands and feet larger in proportion to the rest of their bodies, and faces that I would compare to that of a child's stick figure drawing. Observing the leftovers, the assortment of dry oats, granola, and nuts was scooped up in handfuls and carried off, as I saw in the recording of the site. I brought a flashlight with me this time to see the full extent of the room. With that, I was able to spy a small, perfectly round tunnel, much like the others I saw outdoors. These little bronze beings must be using these as their mode of transport. In fact, these little tunnels are just about the right height for them to navigate through. I'll do some more scouting to see if I can coax any out with more food. Image caption. An image taken of a quote-unquote square body by Dr. Christoph. Following this section of the log, I've managed to barely lure out one of these little things. It seems they take kindly to sweet things, as offering various snacks, candies, and other sweets is what interests them the most. I'll try my best to capture images of them, since these bronze men seem fairly used to human presence and willing to be on camera. None of my other actions have scared them off, and they seem to somewhat comprehend that I am speaking. Speaking seems to invoke odd looks from them, but they murmur to each other in little mousy squeaks and mumbles. Image caption: an image of a quote unquote round body provided by Dr. Christoph. Since it appears that these creatures are somewhat sentient, I tried my best via spoken words, drawings, and writing to convey that I was trying to learn more about them. They didn't comprehend my words or any written language, but offering a paper and pen caused quite a spectacular sight. With mechanical precision, they drew out what I could only call schematics and depictions of themselves constructing various buildings and structures. I believe that must mean that this area must have been something of their own creation. In doing this, I also discovered that these little creatures have the sophistication to make tools. Further observation of these creatures, getting to shake one's hand, looking at their tools, I have concluded that they are indeed made of some kind of metal, perhaps bronze. I'm unsure how they function, or what made them, though. I feel this might just be another anomalous property of these entities. Even their tools seem to be made of the same bronze material as their bodies. I'll have a small break for now, but I'll provide another update if possible. Update 2 of 2, Day 3. I left for an extra day, but to my surprise, I caught some of these bronze buddies in the act of expanding their little space. By simply hitting a portion of the ground with a hammer, it turns it immediately into brick or concrete, though I'm unsure how they control this. I've come across many small, separated garden plots, more constructed buildings, and even larger pillars of concrete. These bronze beings, the bronze builders I'll call them, are in the process of physically carving statues of themselves. Additionally, I have been given a glimpse into their community, an odd, nearly human civilization dedicated entirely to constructing man made land and buildings. I could only imagine their motive, but perhaps this species is in part responsible for buildings we see on levels overall. However, due to them never being seen before, I'm unsure if this is the case. Now that they understand I have no ill will, the bronze builders are far more welcoming to me. The one I assumed was the initial one I met, judging by their square body shape and sori hat on their head, decided to grab my attention and show me facets of their people's lives. They have a hierarchy of members, with square bodied and cone bodied builders taking orders, and round bodied builders planning and doing other jobs. Otherwise, they'll occasionally socialize and eat their scavenged, and mostly stolen, food. Aside from being builders, I've noticed that the cone bodies work more on statues and buildings with more delicate materials within structures. Along with these, I was shown the quiet, spectacular process of creation for these entities. I'm not sure where from, but in a process similar to making statues, the cone bodied builders will take a block of bronze like material. With this, they begin to roughly or precisely, with a variety of qualities, craft and shape another builder. Upon being made, the builder immediately gains sentience. The cause of this and the source of this bronze material is not yet clear to me. Overall, I have attempted to get all the information I can from the bronze builders with my drawings and motions, though I couldn't get any clear answers. All I could gather was that these creatures seem to be hell-bent on expanding their structures. Judging from their drawings, however, I have come to realize that the buildings they depict show similarities to those once found on level 600, blank space. I'll be sure to update every respective party on the matter, but otherwise, I recommend further research. Addendum: Habitats. Following Kwame's discovery, other instances of bronze builders on other levels have been cited, though members of various groups have tried to ward them off or coax them away, as the actions of the bronze builders are noted as being incredibly invasive, despite the good intentions they have. However, it seems that members of Entity 215 only build within levels resembling exteriors, such as level 9, the suburbs, 10, the bumper crop, and 11, the endless city. This is presumably because of the space needed to construct their structures. Addendum: Behavior. The leading theory, and where the bronze builders came from, is that they are in essence refugees. Structures built by Entity 215 often resemble those similar to what was once found on level 600, blank space, before its war and subsequent collapse. Thus, it is assumed that the reasoning for the actions of the bronze builders is the attempted continuation of level 600 elsewhere. Adding to this, questioning survivors from level 600, specifically the free trade store members of level 179, thrift for the lost and found, come to note that the bronze builders were indeed present, mostly keeping themselves hidden from public eyes as they worked. A rarely held, quote unquote, celebration of the builders is also mentioned by people who were once in isolated communities of level 600, blank space, detailing gifts of sugary foods and drinks to the bronze builders as thanks. Builders seem to have also gained their trust in humans from events such as this, given none of Entity 215 species have ever acted directly hostile towards humans. Although they mean no harm and are never hostile towards humans, bronze builders are often targets of other entities. Explorers and wanderers affiliated with other groups have recovered and brought back the broken, chewed up bronze remains of bronze builders who were unlucky enough to encounter hostile entities such as hounds. Autopsies of these bodies have shown that, oddly enough, the bodies of bronze builders are entirely solid. Display anonymous interview. Interview with an anonymous member of the free trade store. Done by Dr. Christoph. Dr. C. Now, about these builders. Anon. Oh, those little scrimbly grimblies? I never knew their real name. That's just what I called them as a kid. Dr. C. Well, yes, we've taken to calling them bronze builders. Entity 215, if we want to be really formal about it. I'm trying to gather past data on them. Anon. Well, they're a rare sight. Were, at least. Barely ever came out, hid in little tunnels beneath the buildings we made. Dr. C. And do they make their own structures? Anon. If we ever saw anything that was falling apart or damaged, they'd be around to repair it in less than an hour. It's like they know somehow. Dr. C. But did they ever make structures of their own? Anon, I would assume that the towns and cities further out and away from ours were probably made by them. Hell, I don't know. Dr. C. The only reason I'm asking is that they've returned. They're building both normal and abstract buildings wherever they can. They share a mighty close resemblance to your old home. Anon, they are? Shit! Have you tried bribing them to move somewhere else? Dr. C. Close. We've managed to organize some system where residents of a level pay them to avoid building in their settlements. Otherwise, we can't do much. Anon. Well, Doc, sorry, I can't be of much help. They're probably pissed that the Leader's War destroyed all their stuff. Dr. C. Right then. I think that'll be all for me. Entity number 215. Addendum. Biology. As mentioned by Dr. Christoph, the creatures of Entity 215 have three distinct types, with three body types: square, conical, and spherical. All builders interact with one another socially, though, when it comes to working, they stick to their own groups. Spherical bodied builders are considered, quote unquote, overseers to others. They give orders, though we cannot be sure, given members of Entity 215 speak in their own language, and stand in elevated spots to observe other workers. Image caption: a quote unquote conical bodybuilder creating a quote unquote square body. Conical bodied are not quite superiors, though they handle far more delicate jobs. This includes constructing furniture and non stone based components for areas, gardening, gathering food, and carving things such as other workers. From this, it can be assumed that conical bodies are an important link in the chain of Entity 215, though spherical bodied builders will still often direct and, at times, reprimand cone bodies. Square bodies are at the bottom of the command structure for bronze builders. They often build and expand spots designated by superiors using hammers, which seemingly create building materials and parts of structures from nothing. Though they are low on the hierarchy, square bodies are still considered important by other builders, as they serve a vital role and make up the majority of known bronze builders. Overall, members of Entity 215 display general sapience and understanding of the world around them. With this comes an understood culture among the bronze builders, along with what researchers deem to be celebrations and cultural holidays, which builders celebrate. Occasionally, builders will celebrate the finishing of a new structure of themselves, though it is unknown entirely why they construct statues of themselves so frequently. Other times, the creation of new builders is met with a celebration with whatever grandiose foods the group of entities has managed to gather up. This is noted as being similar to a birthday celebration. Addendum. Recommendations. Recent testing with members of Entity 215 has given biologists and researchers lots of information on their interests, likes, and dislikes. However, do note that everything recorded here is general. Some groups of bronze builders may have different likes and dislikes than others. It is recommended that wanderers try to avoid disrupting, destroying, or tampering with the work of the bronze builders. Stay distant from communities of bronze builders. If a wanderer does plan on visiting a community of builders, it is advised to bring gifts of candies or other sweets. Attempt to assist bronze builders in relocation, as to avoid issues with the level outposts being taken over. Assist builders in distress and need. Doing so will better their relationship with humanity. Attempt to teach builders basic methods of communication. With that, humanity will one day be able to properly communicate and cooperate with members of Entity 215.